This is Ahead in Tech, career journeys of extraordinary people in tech and interviews that help you get ahead in your tech career. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And I'm here today with Guillaume Bouffard. Guillaume, bonjour, sir. How are you?
Bonjour.
So a little bit about Guillaume. Guillaume, you had a previous career in primarily exec and management roles. You had some time in recruitment as well, as I understand it.
Exactly.
You then decided to retrain via Bootcamp, and that's where we met. We were in the same cohort, that same Bootcamp. We became very good friends. And as we discovered later, we ended up working in the same building, and we didn't even know that. Yeah.
True.
After Bootcamp, you have a really great career in London. You work for some very cool companies like Kahoot, which is global, massive, 50 million daily users or something they say. YLT, an awesome consultancy in London. I'm very jealous about that role. And then after many years in London, or in the UK, you decide to move back. Excuse me. You decide to move back to France, and you're now working for a company called Voxnest, which builds podcasting solutions.
That's it. Yeah.
So a very impressive and varied career, and congratulations to you on everything you've achieved. And
thank you.
That's what we're going to be asking you about today.
Okay.
So let's start from the beginning. What motivates your move into coding?
Right. So as you've explained previously, I used to work in different management roles and sales and recruitment. I did 10 years of complete different things than coding. But I did experience and played with coding when I was younger. For example, I used to make music in a band. And for example, we wanted to make a website for the band. And that was a long time ago. So I played with old HTML, all these old semantics like, table and TDTR, just making a little website with some stuff about the band. And I realized that I enjoyed it. One thing that I also did in the past in engineering school, but that was not a coding school, that was a mechanical engineering school. And when I went there, I did touch a bit of coding and I enjoyed it, but I never got into coding as a career. Still, I enjoyed that. And after a while doing sales, recruitment, all of that, I got bored of it. I didn't think that was a career which I enjoyed anymore. So I wanted to do something else which would make me feel happy, and that would just be something I really want to do for the rest of my life. Because if you think about it, you'd better be doing something that you're going to enjoy, because that way you will never feel like you're working a day in your life. And coding is something that I really liked. So I wanted to go into depth and into learning it the right way. But you can find loads of resources online to learn about coding. You can find loads of free resources. This is not the way I wanted to go. I really wanted to go in a school where they would teach me things the right way, where I would have teachers and mentors telling me, this is what you need to do. And this is what the companies are going to be looking for. And this is where I went to Makers Academy, and I met you. We were in the same cohort. It was pretty awesome. And what really convinced me to join Makers Academy is when I did the pre-interview to potentially join the school, is that they told me, with the things we're going to be teaching you, we can guarantee that if you work hard, at the end of it, you're going to get a job in coding, because we're going to be teaching you the skills that employers are looking for, so you get a job. And that was the part that obviously did convince me, because when you learn on your own by going through free resources, there's no guarantee that you're going to be learning things that employers are going to be looking for. So this is where I basically ended up going to the bootcamp and learn things the right way. So that's the story, the pre-story to joining the bootcamp.
And were you apprehensive of it at all? Was there any fear in you?
Yeah, there are always fear, because even if they tell you you're going to get a job at the end of it, and they said even if if you work hard, there's always a fear that, what if I can't do it? But one thing which kind of made me feel better about that is the fact that I worked really, really hard, because unlike some other people in the court that were, I would say, almost some naturals, that because for them it was so obvious to understand code, especially some of the younger guys who are like more used to technologies, and it was a bit harder for me as an old guy compared to everyone else. But I worked really, really hard. Yeah, and I did catch up. I did go at my own pace, because after the course, I redid all the exercises multiple times just to make sure I understood better and got a better vibe for the code. But my motivation was there. I really wanted to make it happen. So that was the thing that was um, making me feel a bit better about finding a job after that. But yes, there were fears. There were fears,
Mm, mm.
obviously.
So then the getting the career was the most important part to you at the end. That's when
Yes,
you
yeah,
okay.
and I really wanted to find a good company. So
Mm,
that's where my recruitment experience, my past recruitment experience
mm,
came
yeah,
into play, and was very useful.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, look, before we move on to that first role, tell
Hmm.
me about your boot camp experience as a whole. Like you touch on it there that you went at your own pace. You spent time after the course to redoing the course in your own time. What was it
Yeah.
like for you?
Um, so as you know, we had a pre-course where we learned a bit about Git, GitHub, the few basics of. I think we started with Ruby. Yeah, we started with
Hmm.
Ruby, and we had some small challenges just to prepare us to get into the course, and that was pretty useful to get these small basics. Um, the the course is really good. It's really good. The thing that was the hardest were the 2 first weeks, because if you remember, they just throw you in the deep end right away. They gave us a tutorial to follow where basically there's a test which is written, and it's just a shock to the system when you just enter into that bootcamp and you're just thrown into um, a real case study somehow, where
Mm,
there's no well, the pre-course they teach us the basics, but basically they
mm,
just throw you into that big thing to understand, and the first 2 weeks are just like ah.
yeah.
I was scared at first, but if anyone is facing these kind of issue joining a bootcamp, just keep at it. Just keep on doing the tutorial. Don't give up, because the thing is, it was a great experience, even if it was quite hard and hard to keep up with everything that was going on. Obviously, I was also doing a lot of hours in the evening just to really understand what was happening and how the code works. And after the course, I redid everything as I said, but it's hard. I mean, it's not an easy job, and the good thing is, by throwing you into the deep end right away, they just tell you right away that it's not going to be an easy job. It's a fun job. Once things are starting to click, it's
Mm,
great,
mm,
but they prepare you for what's coming by doing that as well. So
mm,
hard experience, fun experience, but you need to go through it to get to a coding career.
yeah. So then, with that first sort of job hunt, I mean, so after makers, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to
Hmm.
speak out of line, but I feel like similar to a lot of people and myself at times, and other people at times, you struggle slightly, or didn't, things didn't always kind of click, and then you decide, but. The thing I remember about you is you always stayed very calm about it, and I think you had that self assurance, that kind of confidence that, okay, you'll figure it out, and you saw it through to the
Yeah,
end. Is that what happened? And then you took your time to fill in all the gaps and make yourself super confident?
yeah, yeah. It's exactly that. It's I have to say, sometimes inside I was freaking out, but I also knew that it was a normal behavior. And I saw some other people within the cohorts who were just freaking out as well, and just being scared about failing, about not understanding. It's a normal behavior, and actually, makers, the guys on makers, tell you from day one, you're not gonna know everything, and just keep at it. It's not an easy career, but once the things will start to click, then it will become more natural for you to code. So yes, you're right. At the end of it, I was a bit skeptical. Things didn't click right away. But that's why I redid everything in my own time. I didn't. I think we finished the course around July or August or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I found a job before October or November because I spent the time to redo everything at my own pace,
Mm.
just to make sure I understand what I was doing and just to give me this edge to get the first job. Obviously, if you don't understand
Mm.
or you don't know what you are doing, you're never gonna get a job. So I had to take that time to redo everything and understand everything, so I could give myself the best chances of getting that first job.
Mm. It was a wise decision, looking back
Hmm.
at it now. Um, and so, with that first job that you got at Kahoot,
Yep.
a lot of people, myself included, we got jobs with hiring partners, and
Yep.
you didn't get a job with a hiring partner.
No.
You went on your own, and you
Yep.
found your own gig. So tell me how that happens.
Okay. So as you said, the makers was partnering with some companies to get some students and into jobs. So I did talk with the hiring manager at Makers. I was in his book to potentially get jobs, but that experience of recruitment that I had gave me an edge to look for something myself. So what I did is I spent a lot of time looking at companies that I was interested in, and I did investigate loads of things about them. I did investigate the location in London because I was living in South London, so I did investigate a bit their reputation, what they were doing, and looking at the technologies that they were doing. I knew I didn't want to go into Ruby. So at Makers, we've learned Ruby to teach us how semantics works and language work, but we also learned coding in JavaScript, and we learned about Angular. Um, I knew I was interested in going into JavaScript because it was a bit more popular and more widely used. And I found that company called Kahoot, which people might know or not, but it's a popular company. They're making that gaming platform, which is quite cool, mostly for education, and which is in JavaScript. So I did apply there. They gave me a technical test to do. Almost, I made them first. Then they gave me a technical test to do. I did the test in JavaScript and Angular. I met them. I did discussion with them, and they liked what I did uh, provide, and they offered me my first job with a lower pay than any other engineer, which was perfectly fine with me because I was interested in that company. And they said, as soon as we see that you're progressing in your code and you're bringing more values, we will reevaluate your salary. But right now, we're going to hire you. We're going to train you. We're going to spend some, because the engineer that was my direct manager said, I will spend time with you every week to train you and teach you things. It turns out that they were not using Angular. They were using that cool framework called React. I was like, okay, I'll learn about that. And so they've been teaching me about React. They were patient with me. I was patient as well myself because I wanted to spend some time to make sure I understand what I was doing before I was pushing some nice code into production. But that's how I got the first gig. They liked my honesty about what I was in my career. I told them they knew I was a junior dev, and we had a good understanding about who I was and who they were. So it was a good match.
That's great. And then you left there to go to YLD. Now, this is a very exciting company to me. Can
Mm-hmm.
you tell me about that time?
Well, I didn't say I left because unfortunately we had something happening with Kahoot, which is that they closed the London office. So it's a
Oh,
company that was in London and in Norway, and there was a change in management, which resulted in them deciding to hire more people in Norway and less in London. So they offered me my job in Norway, but my family was in London. So after 2 years with Kahoot, yeah, I had to find something else. So that's where I met. Well, I did apply to a few companies. I got some offers, got a few offers,
mhm.
and the one that was the most interesting at that time was YLD. It was not the one with the most money, because I think it's important to throw this out there, because most people think that coding is a lot of money, which is true. It's good money, but I didn't want a job that was just giving me the most money. I wanted a job that was obviously giving me good money, but that was in a good location, good company, good reputation, code that I'm interested in, obviously technology
Mhm.
that I'm interested in. And YLD was ticking these boxes because they were a consulting business. And so they had a couple of, I mean, not couple, they had quite a lot of clients. And that way, I thought it would be interesting for me to experience different companies, to touch different code base. And obviously, that was taking me out of a bit of my comfort zone, but that was a good way for me to learn by touching different code bases. And I mostly work for Trainline when I was there, which was a big client for YLD. I spent almost a year at Trainline, so I was in their premises, in the offices, sometimes working from home, and I spent a good year with Trainline, and then I also worked with a small client called Central Working. They were just there was only one engineer working on their website, so it turns out to be me. And I spent some time working on the YLG website when there was some downtimes and people were on the bench. So
Mm.
that's it.
And looking back, that transition from like permanent full time role as like a staff engineer to a consultant being outsourced to other companies. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
were there any surprises, or did you know you could kind of handle that and you were happy with that?
That's as I said. I decided to do it to take myself out of my comfort zone because I knew that that was a good way for me to learn. I wouldn't say there were that many surprises, but it was really interesting to work for a consulting business because you realize that um, there are a lot of discussions between what you can provide as a consultant. And you make suggestions, but at the end of the day, it's the end client that just make the decisions. So sometimes you can find yourself almost having a conflict with your client because they want to do something. And as a consulting business, even when you're talking with your colleagues, you just say, but I think they should do it this way because it will work better. And they're just like, nah. Sometimes it's just a question of budget or doing things the way they've always done it. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see these discussions and even learn from product managers and see how they go about decisions. Yeah, it was a good gig.
Yeah, excellent. Must have been very educational and a lot of fun,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. And a great way to grow and challenge yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looking back now, because you then moved to France
Yeah.
for family reasons, I assume. You
Yeah.
became a dad, is that right?
That's true. I got 3 kids, so I apologize. There's a
Whoa.
bit of noise in the background because it's summer holidays right now. So
Uh,
yeah, I got 3 daughters, and so I'm a busy family man.
yeah, you must be
Uh,
very busy.
yeah, but I discussed with my wife, and it's something we already wanted to do for a while to move abroad. I mean, for her, it was moving abroad because my wife is
Mm,
British. I'm
mm,
French,
mm,
obviously. So for me, it was moving back,
mm.
and we to do that, I needed to find a gig where I would work remote, and um, so things ended with YLD, and I started to look for something else. And I did apply to some companies, and I came across this company called Voxnest, which is a host for podcasts. So you can obviously hold your podcast. I think I should suggest you hold your podcast there,
Yeah.
by the way. And you can monetize it. You can advertise. There are lots of interesting options and interesting things you can do with that podcast. You got episodes. You can manage loads of things. It's an awesome product. But I gave it a shot. I spoke with them. They're using React, JavaScript, and everyone in the company is remote. So I would say it's a company with 40 employees worldwide, many of them being in Italy because the founders and all the C-level management are Italians. Even if they're not in Italy anymore, there's some in Spain, some in the US. We're working basically mostly in Europe. I mean, the engineering team. And so they were looking for engineers in Europe. I think I'm the only one in France. Yeah, there are some in Portugal, in Spain, Serbia, Netherlands. Yeah. So at the interview, I few interviews with them. I liked what they were providing. It looked interesting. Once again, I had offers from other companies, but Voxnest was the most interesting one. So, and their main product is called Spreaker. So that's the one I work mostly on. And when I was hired to work mostly on the enterprise solution because they got obviously one consumer product, but they got a solution for enterprise with more options to monetize and see statistics and things like that. And it looked really interesting. I liked as well the people. I liked the code base. So yeah, it looked like an interesting job, and I'm still there till now, and I'm very happy. Love it.
Yeah, it's an amazing platform, really, and a
Mm-hmm.
great set of tools for podcasting. Um, but looking back at that move, like looking back now at your time in London,
Mm-hmm.
how do you kind of sum up your career experiences there, or like the tech scene there?
What I can tell you about starting to work in London is it was something necessary for me to become someone who would work remote. Unfortunately, I couldn't. I think it's very hard to go remote right away. So it was something that I had to do to work directly on in client premises to get that uh, foot in the door to become a remote freelance. Also, I started all the jobs I had were permanent, while this one I'm actually a freelance, so I'm independent. Um, so looking back at it, it has something that had to be done to get me where I am today, and I don't regret anything. That was the right thing to do. It was an amazing experience. If I had to do it, I'll do it again. So anyone who's trying to join a boot camp and then find your first jobs in London and then the sky's the limit. But yeah, it has to be done.
How do you keep growing technically, and what kind of things are you interested in right now?
Right. So I'm always well, I'm lucky enough to be working in a company that gives budget for training and allow to go to conferences. So funny enough that you asked because I attended some remote conferences, one last week, and I've got another one booked for October. I try to keep up with new things. So obviously conferences. I follow some newsletters like JavaScript Weekly to see what's happening with the industry, and I'm funny enough when there's an interesting framework and I want to try it. I always ask my employer if there's a bit of time I can spend to experience it and play with it. Because during my free time, it's a bit difficult with the kids, but they gave us some free time to work on on growing our skills, especially if it's going to be useful for the company. So
Mm.
yeah, I try to keep up as much as I can. And we also got some internal talks within the company when there's someone that has something interesting to say. Um, I'm mostly a front end developer, but I'm interested, sorry, in becoming more full stack. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I've got so much work on the front end. It's very hard for me to touch back end and play with it.
Mm.
But when I will have more time, I want to grow and become a real full stack because I'm really front end. And so yeah,
Mm.
I'm always interested in growing my skills, and when there's a chance to do so, I'm doing it.
And I guess, now with the proliferation of Node everywhere, and your existing JavaScript skills, I see no obstacles really to
No,
becoming
no, no, I
good
don't
in the
see any
back end,
obstacles.
right?
No, 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 no. The sky is the limit. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
The
So,
hard part is to find the time.
yeah, yes, tell me about it. So, so look, finally, we mentioned this that, you are a very sort of on the outside anyway, you're a very calm and confident person, who as long as I've known you, you always overcome any challenge that kind of gets thrown in your way. You don't try to
Mm-hmm.
be a superstar, but you kind of quietly have like really succeeded very well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll cut to the chase. You must get some imposter syndrome, some self-sabotaging thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
So everyone's getting the imposter syndrome. Feeling like you don't belong. And a part which is interesting what you said. You said that I get there quietly, because one thing about me. despite the fact that I'm talking right now, I'm a very quiet person, and that's just the way I am. So sometimes when there are discussions within the team about something, sometimes I'm very silent. But if there's something that needs to be said and no one else within the group has said it, I will say it. But anyway, just let's go back to your question about the imposter syndrome. Yeah, it does feel the case sometimes, and every engineer is probably going through it. That sometimes you're stuck on something and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing here? I can't do this job. It's just like, what are they paying me for? But just don't give up. You will, if you keep on searching, you might find by yourself. And if you're stuck on something, just ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. You might have some colleagues who know the answer, and they'll just unblock you. It's not always easy because you want to solve things by yourself. You feel like you don't belong when you cannot solve things, but it's completely normal. You cannot solve everything. You will not solve everything. You just need help sometimes. So keep calm. Yeah. Try to solve it by yourself. Look on Google, look on Stack Overflow. Try to find the answer to anything that blocks you. But if you don't, just ask for help. Your colleagues might know something that you don't, and you will learn something. You might learn it by yourself, or they might teach you something. Just keep at it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Wonderful words of wisdom to end on. But before I let you go, I need the joke of the show.
Okay. How many developers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know how many.
None. It's a hardware problem.
Hey.
It's bad. It's bad.
It's lovely. Thank you, Guillaume. This has been wonderful. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure, Sanjay.
And that's all, folks. More info, links, and everything else can be found on aheadintech.com. Thank you, and please subscribe.